Mississippi State football has picked up the commitment from Tupelo linebacker Devontray Brewer, a 3-star. That's the wrong one to be sharing. Let me share a different screen. I'm going to Gene's page for some stuff, but I was sharing the wrong one. Where's it at? There it is. Okay. 3-star linebacker, again, out of Tupelo, 6'1", 225, although I've seen some listing up to around 235 at this point. 88 overall 3-star on the 247 composite, the 247's own rankings, 87.5 on the composite. Number 17 player within the state of Mississippi and the number 44 linebacker nationally, one of the top linebackers in the state. A guy that many expected to be a Bulldog for quite some time. That was sort of the expectation there. It was like, there we go, get it shared up to the screen. Really had been a Mississippi State lean for quite some time, and then surprisingly earlier this month makes a commitment to Stanford of all programs. And we kind of talked about that here on the show. That's an odd commitment, and not that Stanford is not a fantastic school, and no one could fault the young man if he'd wanted to go get a Stanford education. It's about as good as you can possibly do. But from a football standpoint, that's a bit odd. You're a Tupelo kid who grew up a Bulldog, and this is a school that has done really well with linebackers, really regardless of coaching situation. Linebackers have always been great. Tupelo's been a great pipeline for Mississippi State in the past, and Stanford's out on the literally opposite side of the country. That's quite a far ways away, and it's always a question, is a kid like that really going to stick with said commitment? And the tea leaves have been reading for some time, hey, don't expect this to be a case where he's going to stick with it. State's going to continue recruiting hard, and sure enough, he ends up flipping to the Bulldogs after a visit to Starkville. Was a lot of optimism that was ultimately going to happen, and it's a really good pickup. You also had offers from Arkansas, Baylor, obviously Stanford, Ole Miss was in the mix as well. This is a really nice pickup for State. A little bit on the shorter end at just 6'1", but a guy that if you go and you watch some of the film on him is a very attacking linebacker, can generate a bunch of negative plays. Looking at his numbers from a season ago, 119 tackles, 4.5 sacks with 10 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hurries. The season before, 80 tackles as a sophomore with 26.5 for a loss, 10.5 sacks. That is big-time production and creating a lot of negative plays. And when you see that, my first thought is, assuming Zach Arnett is this guy's defensive coordinator in the coming years, he is a perfect fit for what Zach Arnett wants to do. Just a guy who's very aggressive to the football and will go make tackles on sideline to sideline in the backfield. It's a nice pickup. So, Alex, we knew State needed to get some help on the defensive side of the ball. Yes, defensive line is where a lot of the attention has been, but you need linebackers as well. State did not sign a high school linebacker a season ago, at least not a traditional inside backer. They did get an edge player in Micah Nickerson. What do you think of this commitment, and just some of your thoughts on getting Brewer in the class?
Yeah, nice commitment. I know it's like you said, high 3-star. He had some impressive offers. Michigan was in there, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Baylor. So it wasn't like it was just a kid that was Mississippi State was his best offer. Like, he had other P4 programs in the mix. So, yeah, I'm really excited. Another common theme with all these in-state kids is, grew up a Mississippi State fan. I think when he posted on his Instagram to announce a commitment, it was him and his family as a kid at a Mississippi State game in all maroon gear. So that's a great sign.
Yeah, always great when you can get the guys who grew up wanting to be a Bulldog, and for State to continue working even after the commitment to Stanford and just making sure that could happen. This is a good addition to the class. A good pickup, more help for that defensive side of the ball, and again, a guy that I think can help you create negative plays, which is going to be a big part, assuming that's your defensive identity for the coming future with Zach Arnett as your DC. A really good fit there. And if I'm a linebacker, why would I not want to go play for Zach Arnett? Especially if I'm a guy that can excel as a pass rusher, excel in terms of getting into the backfield. That's going to be big. Probably needs to work a little bit from a coverage standpoint. That's kind of the one thing that you don't really see pop a ton on the huddle, kind of mostly playing within the box and truly getting downhill. But look, if you're talking about him just being a kind of a pure old school Mike linebacker, I'm staying in the middle of the field and that's kind of all I'm doing. He looks like a guy that could really excel. So a nice pickup for State. On the flip side, the Bulldogs did lose one commitment And that does come at a position that we've talked quite a bit about not wanting to necessarily lose players, and that is offensive lineman Caleb Unger out of Madison Ridgeland Academy. Another – do I have it up on the screen? Where will it go? Come on. There it goes. All right. Another high 3-star prospect here within the state. Had been committed to the Bulldogs for quite some time. You get number 14 player within the state, 89 overall 3-star. Recently took his visit to the Bulldogs. It seemed like it went well. The conversation out of this is, some of his limitations, being just 6'2", he's kind of stuck as an interior offensive line prospect moving forward. Basically going to play center would be the expectation there. Now, if the guy is really good at doing that, you don't say no, right? You still want a guy like that on campus. And Mississippi State, let's be clear, did not drop Caleb Unger, did not look at him and say, well, we're not going to take you because of your height. Obviously, they had an offer, they had a commitment. And if you read up the scouting report on Unger, it really does sound like the only reason he is not a 4-star is because of the height. And I look at something like that, and I'm of the opinion if you're the Bulldogs, you don't turn down a talented player that's somebody that you try to get into class, if at all possible, just because the measurables are not there. However, from an O-line standpoint, if you were limited to one spot, that limits your ability to make an impact at the next level. Having versatility is a big thing, and especially with the high school ranks, a lot of times the approach you'll see from schools is we're taking guys that were high school tackles, like go recruit a bunch of guys who played left tackle all throughout high school, and then we're going to make it work wherever it works for them because they've shown at least they've got the athleticism to play that one spot. Maybe it doesn't translate to the next level, but a good high school tackle, at the very least, if he's athletic enough to do that, should be athletic enough to play guard, play center, if you can teach those skill sets to him. And again, State did not drop Caleb Unger. That does need to be made clear. But it does sound like this is one of those deals he's kind of choosing to look in a different direction, and maybe State was not going to prioritize him in the same way that they might a guy who could play more tackle. So you kind of get a little bit of almost a mutual parting of ways a little bit. I don't want to fully say that, but look, I don't like the loss because of State's offensive line recruiting being what it is, but I also don't think it's necessarily the end of the world. Alex, just some of your thoughts on Unger and losing him in the class.
Yeah, like you said, you never want to lose. In our situation, all offensive linemen, even if he may be limited to one position, but like you said, if he can play that position at an elite level, I don't think that's somebody that State would want to leave, especially in-state kid from Madison, private school kid. I hope it works out for the kid. I don't know if he's able to recommit. I'm sure State would take him, so maybe that's an option, but it seems like he is wanting to look at other places. I think Tulane may be a place to watch out for. But yeah, it's especially in our situation. I hate losing any offensive linemen, especially young ones from in-state.
Yeah, if you look, Tulane is the only other program that he has recently taken a visit to. Colorado as well. So Colorado, Tulane, and Mississippi State are the places where he's taken visits. But still, a Baylor offer, a Duke offer. I think the talent level is definitely there to be a power conference lineman for sure. It's just – how many programs, if you don't have the position versatility, are going to make you a top priority in the class? That's kind of the question. But look, if he's willing to come back to Mississippi State and says, okay, I'll make that happen, I'd certainly be down to bring him back into class. Again, he's a good player. It's just a little bit limited from a skill set standpoint. But I think if you're State with where you're at the offensive line, you wouldn't complain. So I don't like to see it, just that you have lost him. But – it's one of those is what it is type situations for Mississippi State ultimately. Let's fool around with the layout a little bit here. See if I can get it right. Oh, well, we'll go with that. State's class, you get a commitment from Brewer. That's a good pickup. You don't like to see the loss of Unger, but some other guys who could step in that you think could be solid additions for them. As it stands currently, Mississippi State still sitting with the number 53 class nationally, with 15 commitments. Not where you want to be, but Brewers just immediately became the number 3 player within your class. So this is a really big pickup getting him in, and hopefully State can continue their momentum going forward.